Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is December the 16th, year 2020. We are here live with our panel. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with the panel members, so here we go. We have April, who is a channel and a medium and a spiritual teacher. Good evening, April. She's back with us after a few weeks of being away from us. So we are thrilled to no end that April has joined us again. Kelly, our Qigong teacher. Hi, Kelly. Good evening. And Travis, who is a musician and a spiritual teacher. Welcome, Travis. And of course, the incredible Eileen is here, and she's going to keep us well streamlined, coordinated, right? Running like a well-oiled machine.
I'm going to try, but this well-oiled machine is not finding the Facebook Live, but I'll find it. My Facebook's delayed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Summer asked a question through Messenger, and I thought it was a good way to get started. And since April is here, and she's a psychic as well, so it's perfect for her. Since death isn't real, does our soul choose what our next body type will be? Next family dynamic, that is country, power, wealth, decade, or order of birth, etc. Still get the question? I don't need to type it, right? You got it, right? So does death isn't real? Does our soul choose what our next body type will be? Go ahead. April, let's get started. Let's get the party started. Thank you.
I'm going to do what Kelly normally does and say short answer is yes. Short answer is yes. Yes to all of the above. We stay in a soul family. So last time you may have been my neighbor or my aunt or whatever. And then we do pick our parents. We do pick what country we're going to be from. And that is all for soul evolution, for learning. I've had a couple past life regressions done on me myself for healing purposes, to clear out some chakras, and it has come up that I was a black male. Is my sound too loud? It's also come up that I did let me turn myself down a little bit and see if that helps. I did a regression one time where I ended up all the way back in Egypt. So we have the numerous lifetimes, different people, different races, different sizes, colors, all of those things. And that is for learning. You can't know if you don't experience. The only thing that does go back on the other side when we are done is the knowledge that we gain. The body doesn't go back. It's a physical body. It stays here. And I think you are aware, okay, this is where I said the last time I talked, I said I had a little bit of a different perspective. And I may need a little clarifying in it. So if you guys know, my youngest daughter is deaf and she was born that way. And I started to think about, so did she choose to be deaf? Did she like literally say and make the baby deaf? Or is it because humans have so many anomalies and because of genetics, there are so many defects? Did her soul on the other side say, April's going to have a kid and it's going to be deaf? Which soul is going to take the job? And I kind of think it's more like that her soul said, I'm big enough to take that job because April's going to have a child. It's a genetic defect. The child's going to be. But again, Yes. So I do believe my daughter came here. She knew she was going to be blonde, blue-eyed. She was going to be deaf. She knew what kind of mom she was going to have. This, I'm called the family crazy lady because I do the spiritual stuff and the psychic stuff. She knew that, right? Knew that she was going to be born in a family with already 4 other sisters. So that's my opinion is yes, and it is for the evolution of the soul because everything you gather, you take back and the soul evolves.
Thank you, April. I kind of agree that the soul, her soul chose the physical disability. Like you said in the previous Q&As, right? We are moving towards unconditional love. So somehow when her, in the fetus, when the soul was being born, the soul said, the life force said, I'm going to not know hearing and now overcome that challenge. Eckhart has a talk, I cannot remember it. I think it's like facing externals or something about how to overcome external challenges, right? He talks about that. If y'all have heard of the orator that had a speech impediment and he put pebbles in his mouth, this is what Eckhart says, right? He put pebbles in his mouth and it shouted at the ocean. He would stand by the ocean and put pebbles in his mouth and spoke, and then became like one of the best Greek orators they ever was. So that is the transcendence, right? So your daughter's soul chose the disability, the hearing disability. But then when we have one perception down, all the others rise up. She will have enhanced smell, enhanced vision. The other perceptions increase, right? So she's going to have something that is an increased perception. And then now let her soul figure out how can she love instead of saying, turning that victim identity, oh, poor me that is deaf. I can be this, right? Oh, poor me, I'm deaf, and people, I'm not the same as others. So she has to transcend that challenge, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the same as all the
Well,
other children.
and just to clarify a little bit, she is 90% deaf. She was born 50%, and then at 4 she lost half of what she had, so she's now technically 90% with hearing aids, but she still only hears on average 80% of what the normal person hears. But her eyesight isn't the best, but her smell is. But she can hear perfectly in her mind. She says, "Mom, did you say my name?" No, that was grandma. Grandma's on the other side. So that perception is heightened, I think, because of,
Exactly. Because
yeah,
this is
yeah,
awesome, beautiful. So the more she learns to enhance that perception, know of her transcendent dimension, the more she's going to bring it through, right? Let the consciousness flow through her. And that'll be her life lesson, this soul journey. Beautiful. Thank you, April. Thank you for the example too. It's perfect. Travis, did you want to speak about the question?
Sure. Thanks, April and Poonam. I do not disagree with what both of you have said. And I have some things to add to that, different perspectives to consider and add to the reflection of all of it. Because again, oftentimes for me, questions come up more than answers, and I really appreciate questions, and even if they're left open-ended, sometimes I cherish the questions even more than the answers. And some of the questions that came up for me, one is when I don't know who I am, why should I identify with limitation? Why should I mean, is that which is born and dies repeatedly, is that who I am? Why would I be, if I'm not certain about who I am, why would I identify with that without something suggesting that it is indeed such, that it's indeed the case? So that's something that comes up for me, because I feel like, to answer the question, we almost have to go into a mode of seeing things and saying things as if we are that which is born and dies and born and dies. And I think that's maybe those cycles of birth and death, each of them a step in the process and opportunity to realize that we aren't limited in who we are. And so the other questions that come up for me are, so say I didn't choose who I'm going to be with and who I'm going to be in this lifetime, then who? Then so somebody with more power, I would suppose, they'd have a higher status and more options at their disposal as far as things that they can manipulate. And so for me to see whoever that is as who I am not, again, I think would be a kind of unexamined, unconscious assumption, because I don't want to be in a modality of seeing myself and the reality of who I am. Not the changing face of who I am, but the reality of who I am. It doesn't make sense for me to see that as different from anyone, because I see that same reality of who I am, not the fluctuating surface of who I am, but the reality of who I am. I see that in everybody. So that's who I am. So I have a hard time. I want to transition into speaking in a way that is always bringing attention to that, more than speaking in a way that is bringing attention to that which is always in flux and change. So that said, I really do resonate with, like what you were saying, April and Poonam both, that when I look at my family, I look at my life, I can't imagine how I could have come into this life in whatever state of evolution my soul is in, and not be with the family that I'm with, not have these people around me, not have the people in my life like Tony or Charlie, who to me it feels like they've chosen this role of being these, wheelchair bound, both quadriplegic, they bear such tremendous gifts. They're such warrior spirits, and it does seem like there's some thing that goes on behind the curtain before we come out onto the stage. What that is, I can't lie, it's a mystery to me. It really is. I don't know if it always will be. I don't know. So that's what I have to say on all of that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Travis. Yeah, Eckhart has this beautiful, beautiful way of, I don't know what happened to him when he was giving this talk called You Are the Sky, which would have been in the year 2011. It was put on the website in the year 2012. And what he says is, what is true detachment? True detachment is non-identification with mental formations. They arise, and we are the space in which the mental formations arise. So if we were to take that and transfer it to even this body, this family, all that is arising in that space, that spaciousness of consciousness. And true detachment is to be detached from all of it, right? That's what you're saying. And that's what he says. That's a reincarnation, the next thought formation to next thought formation. And he has a couple of jokes about chili con carne. He says carne means carnate, right? Flesh, being in the flesh. So reincarnation is being in the, so stop reincarnating into the next thought formation. So beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Travis, for that. Kelly, I'm sure you are going to have a really deep insight, so go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. Yeah, very well said, Travis, April. I completely agree with what has been said. And again, short answer is yes. At a soul level, and again, this is sort of where individuals like Eckhart, they talk about the formless and the understanding of before the veil, before we are incarnate in physical 3D reality, and we lose the soul aspect, senses that people often refer to as, you know, sixth sense or being intuitive or being psychic. The realities of our soul information is that our souls choose. At a soul level, we choose which experiences to incarnate into in order to seed our realities with the greatest potential for spiritual evolution. And sometimes it's really hard to understand why, because things seem so jumbled or just so like, you know, why would someone choose to, you know, I'll talk to Tina's comment right now, because, you know, why would someone choose to incarnate with, you know, parents who don't know how to be parents? Oftentimes when we are incarnate with people who are absent in our lives, even if they are present, you know, if we have parents who are not there, there is a real deep current in soul evolution to understand how strong we really are and how strong our hearts really are. And this is how I look at soul evolution, is that every single opportunity, every single learning experience, every single experience really is about that choice. And this is why being present is so important, because when we are present in our hearts and we are aligned with creation, or the formless as it's, you know, often called, we learn how to access our own strength and how to give ourselves that gift of divine alignment, heart alignment, and that space of finding within us the eternal soul aspect of our Godhead, our goddess, our warrior spirit, whatever you want to call it. Hardships are hardships. Everything in our lives is designed at a soul level to force us to evolve. And oftentimes, you know, people like to talk about how, oh, well, you know, I'm aligned with, you know, my higher self, so everything is bliss and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. Enjoy that. I'm someone who grew up with very conscious connection to past life memories, um, uh, ancestral memory, cellular memory, and some of my more common experiences growing up as a kid was being able to have one foot in that other space and one foot in this physical reality. And it's one of the reasons why I practice the martial arts and Qigong, is to be able to focus and to not get lost in all that information. And that was one of my biggest problems growing up is getting lost in all that information. Being present and being aligned with our hearts is so important because it clarifies everything. Any questions that we have can be answered by being present and being aligned with our hearts, stepping away into observation, our body, present moment. When you are more present, everything lines up. There's no jumble. There's a structure to the other side. And it really has to do with all of those seeds that we've planted in previous lifetimes to be where we are now, so that we have all of the hardships, so that we are given the opportunity to see deeper into who we are. I mean, and you know, do not misunderstand me. I'm not dismissing how hard some of those hardships are and how brutal life can actually be. The great awakening that is happening right now is a shattering of old perceptions of reality. And on a soul level, we have all chosen to be here. Even the trees have chosen to be here, even the animals. They've all chosen to be here. And it's up to us to choose to be courageous, to go inside and to listen and to feel our own information, and to not get lost in being in over-identifying with the pain or the hurt that the outside world has triggered in us. Those feelings of pain and hurt are very easy to get lost in. And it is really, really important to wake up to the fact that we are stronger. We are not our pain or our hurt or our fear. We are an aspect of creation having a human experience. And that everything in our lives is designed to reflect that and designed to give us the opportunity to feel the depth of that agreement with ourselves. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. And the pain and suffering was also moving us towards unconditional love, because we were to transcend it. Right?
Exactly. That's the choice of strength and courage.
Thank you. Eileen, did you want to contribute to Summer's first question? I know there are more input, and I'll read it, but then.
Are you talking about the original question?
Yes.
Okay. My brain has a lot of questions in it right now. I probably am gonna not answer that one right now, just because I think I'm getting it mixed up with a couple of different things that have been asked of me over the last few minutes.
Okay.
But I'll wait.
Thank you. So I have a question from what April said. When you went in the past life regression of the African American male, what is the lesson that you knew that African American male taught the next reincarnation? Like, what did that, do you know what that incarnation learned? And then, you know, it almost is like we are actually evolving as we are reincarnating, right? Like our previous reincarnation is teaching us lessons, then we take another life birth. This is teaching us more lessons, then we take the next. But I'm thinking we are always moving towards the positive, which is evolving, evolution. So you want to share that? How does it help so that if people want to do regression therapy, which is hypnotic regression, they can attempt that as well, right? Go ahead. Thank you.
So there's a couple of things here. One is, well, they've got so many questions here that I just want to address. So let me center here for a second. And the basic answer that Kelly was trying to say in was saying to us was that we pick difficult lifetimes because we have a goal. We have something we want to learn. So we pick a difficult lifetime in the hopes of, not really the hopes, but because the other side, there's only love. That's it. Period. Love. There's no other emotions. There's no glasses. There's no wheelchairs. There's no, oh, poor me. So the goal is I'm going to go through these difficult times, difficult parents. I'm going to be beat. I'm going to be starved. I'm going to be whatever. And I'm going to make it. I'm going to come out on the other side, closer to God, healed, right? So that's the ultimate goal. And that's the ultimate why. That's it. You're going to heal, you're going to grow, and you're going to learn unconditional love. So when I had that regression, it was because, which like I can do the soul regression. That's one thing because I have the hypnotherapy. But what was happening was I was having issues in my root chakra where I was having a consistent physical issue, wouldn't go away. And what I found was that that is where that soul had reside, in that energy center. Wanted to clear up the problem. And that was actually a younger Black male who was a slave, who was abused. And what I think that lesson was for was, in order to fully understand that we should not abuse others, we have to be abused. And people are probably going to get upset when I say have to, but you don't have to. But how else do you know what it feels like to steal if you don't steal? How else do you know what it feels like to lie if you don't lie? You have to actually have the experience, and that's where the knowledge is gained from the soul. So that was that experience, is that everybody, number one, should be treated equal, which I've stated before. I never understood the abuse. I just never got that. I never understood that. It never made sense to me in my life. And that's perhaps why, is because I had this incarnation where it wasn't equal and it wasn't right. So through the regression, I was able to go back and to heal that. So the ultimate answer to all of it, though, is at some point, this is probably where most of my work lies, is walking people through the dark night of the soul and getting them to the other side where there's peace. At some point, you have to look at what has happened in your life from the soul perspective, not the human perspective. If I look at it from the human perspective, I hate everybody. Nothing is fair, nothing is right. But if you start looking at it from the soul perspective and you go, oh, so that had to happen so that this would happen so that, oh, and guess what? It's all good and it's all perfectly designed. And God is never sick. He's never wounded. He's never depressed. And that's in me. So there's a part of me that's never sick, never wounded, never depressed. So I'm all good. Got it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, April. Let's go to the questions. There's like stacked up questions. First is Tina. If that is the case, as April says, that our soul is picking out our parents, why would we pick parents that are so unconscious? They don't know how to be parents. And how can we have soul growth without being born yet? Travis, you want to start?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mhm. So again, I guess I hesitate because the last thing I would want is to alienate anyone, because but I have it feels like there's something kind of pulling me to move into this space of if I don't say it, I don't know if any of us will, is that that we, you, I, is not that which changes. And so that's that part isn't ever not true. Everything else we talk about will eventually be not true once it changes. And then from there, it'll probably be forgotten in time. So, and it'll be as if it never was. So there's some part of me that can't help but to want to do what I can to gently usher our shared attention into that space of seeing and recognizing that which ultimately has no name and which is changeless, and so just to bring our attention to that, that's my natural tendency. So I just can't help myself. But again, to go from that point to asking the question, because it's not as though there isn't any truth to this at all. There is truth to all this stuff. And so I'm just reading the question here. Well, I feel like Kelly and April have already answered this question pretty thoroughly, or maybe all of us, but just as far as these, tremendous challenges, it's like April said, not looking at it from the human perspective, but from the soul perspective. There's a greater picture to who we are beyond this incarnation, and so without looking at it from that perspective, it seems hard to understand how one could, find themselves in such undesirable situations and then accept it as just a good thing. So yeah, so I think what we're looking at is varying perspectives, right? There's the perspective of the limited perspective of the person incarnate in this one life. I don't know what there is beyond it. There's that perspective. It's like if you were standing at a certain point on a hillside, you can only see certain areas. The other areas are obstructed by other hills or trees or something. So there's a limited perspective of the human being, right? Then there's maybe a little further up the hill would be a higher vantage point from the perspective of the soul, right? Which is the initial forgetfulness of who we are. We go, I've forgotten my deepest essence. Now I've found myself on this journey, and I come all the way back around to remember who I am on an even deeper level. And so, but to see who we truly are, even deeper than the soul's journey, we have to climb a little higher toward the summit. And from there, we can see all around. So that's what we're talking about here, is these varying perspectives, varying in limitation. And so as we embrace our soul's journey, probably quite likely that we would expedite our ability or to see things from less limiting perspectives. So I think that's the part of the message here, is that we embrace our Svedharma, right? Our unique life path, this blueprint unique to us, this incarnation, this step on the soul's journey. Because we, again, too, when they always say, you might be looking up at the summit, but if you don't watch your footing and watch the step you're on, you could stumble and fall. So we have to pay attention to the step that we're on. So the most important incarnation in our soul's journey is this one. And so, because it's the one we're on. So, but the other ones led us here, and it's okay. There's nothing, I don't see it as bad unless we're overly identified with it. Then gosh, think of all the time you would feel yourself as. I once heard a story of a teenage girl who had access to all of these lifetimes. She looked like an old woman in her face. She was carrying all those lives. So there might be reason as to why. I don't know if she went to a spiritual guide or someone who was able to help her with that. I don't remember the whole story, but there might be reason. There's only so much difficulty we can take on at once, and so there might be some reason related to that as to why we don't always remember so much of other lifetimes. But I think that works well for me, just that picture of the limited perspective of the human, the soul's, the person, the soul's journey, which is more than that, and then even more than that is the truthiest truths of all truths that never changes. That's the heart of the matter, and that is what it would behoove us most to not lose sight of that. So sorry, pardon my stumbling on my words getting these things out, but thanks for your patience with all of it. That's my share on that one.
So if I were to take April's example, right, and the little I know from Dr. Eben Alexander and Karen Noel's course, while the soul was exiting during the last birth, they had a final review, right? The life review happened. During the life review, they saw all the unconsciousness, like, because it's always, they see it from the other side, right? Like, if they had beat up somebody, they're going to see the pain that it has caused the other person, right? If they had sexually abused another person, then they're going to see the pain that they caused the other person. Now, during your life review, we are going to say, okay, these are the lessons I need to learn. I need to learn how to handle sexual abuse. I need to learn how to handle physical abuse to the point of no return kind of physical abuse. And then the soul is going to go choose the parent that is going to dish out that abuse, right? So Eileen does want to, Zachary has a question, her son, right? Has a question. So since Kelly's always good with kids, Kelly, you want to see what Zachary wants to know and want to respond to it, please?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Yeah. Thank you, Travis.
Do you want me to say your question? Oh, he wants me to say it.
Okay.
So he wants to know, you want to do it? Then do it.
Zach,
Does souls ever get created?
do
So,
souls
like,
ever what?
Are they ever created? So he was saying, like, would there ever be like a baby soul? I tried to explain it.
Okay, yeah, no, I get it. I heard that. So short answer, yes. Though
He's all excited.
there are, again, different varying ages of souls. Someone asked about old souls earlier, and yes, souls have different ages. Souls have different, I don't want to use time because time is not the right word at all. It has more to do with the emanation from the center of creation in terms of the depth of information that they carry, if that makes sense.
So like
So-
experience.
Yes, exactly. So a baby soul would technically be, again, I don't want linear time definitions just don't want to. It has to do with level of experience. And in that respect, some souls tend to spend a lot of time in one place and work on very specific experiences before they go out and acquire more and more experiences or get quote unquote older. Yeah, so the short answer, basic answer is yes, there are baby souls, there are young souls, and there are old souls, and there are ancient souls. And there is sort of a linear progression, but again, it has to do with the level of experience and the emanation, as in, like, if you had like a circle and then you said emanations of creation, and the vibration and the density of information from the center of creation is sort of one of the ways that age of souls is sort of determined. I'm using massive air quotes here because so yeah, yes, basic simple answer is yes.
He said, see, I told you that. He said, see, I told you were wrong. He's talking about me.
Right.
But the way you say it actually makes sense. It's not that I was wrong. They can't be necessarily created or destroyed, but that they can have a different level of experience.
Yes.
I left that,
Yep.
didn't have
Yes.
that part in there.
Yep.
But thank you.
And just to add, any soul that is on this planet, I would characterize as being old, given how much information is actually on this planet. Also, the energy bodies, from what I've understood, that humans actually have incarnating as a human is a very deep soul lesson. So there's a lot of information that humans are able to access, carry around, and participate in on multiple levels of reality all at once, which is fairly unique to us, from what I understand. Anyhow.
Thank you, Kelly. Did you want to say something, April?
I first have to laugh. I am, for the love of God, my daughter got 2 little kittens, and this cat is coming and eating my earbuds. It is literally over there trying to knock my notebook off. I am like, please come get the cat so I can do what I'm doing. Thank you. Oh, anyways. Okay. So I want to answer one of the questions that was asked before, which kind of goes with what Kelly is saying. It kind of goes with this question, is that if we are not born, do we still learn? The answer is yes. We do learn on the other side. There is evolution on the other side. You don't have to come to Earth per se for your soul to evolve, for it to learn. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That is true. All the energy that has ever been created had already created in our Big Bang from our central sun, which is source. So that is true as well. There are different, basically, levels of souls, like Kelly is saying, and those again are all for the purpose of learning. The knowledge that a cat soul is going to learn is different than a baby soul, than, an old soul. They're all different stages of learning, all coming together for one big expansion. Basically, we need all these different, we need the tree soul, we need the bug soul, we need the cat soul, we need all these souls for everything to work perfectly. So we got another, this is kind of the same question that we had a couple weeks ago. So they're asking Kelly a question about incarnation. And yes, we incarnate several times. And again, it's all for the learning of our soul. And what Travis is saying, don't get lost in the human perspective, but and saying, hang on to what we really are, which is God, source, that one big soul. But the richness and the learning comes from being in the human soul and actually learning these lessons and incorporating them, and then doing, like you're saying, Poonam, is learning that unconditional love for all and everything, that oneness. So,
Thank you, April. I think in the book, Seth speaks, again, back to Jane Roberts writing this channel teaching. She channels an entity called Seth. And Seth talks about the fact that exactly what April said, that when we are in the other realm, they are spirit guides that will use those kind of lessons. The spirit guide will show lessons in the other realm as well. But then the same non-physical entity may say, okay, now I'm going to take birth and learn through the human evolution, right? Take human form and then learn the lesson through the human form. Let's look at the next question. So you'll answer the old soul. So I'll go to Candy's question. When we say that we are in acceptance, how do we know that it's not an excuse for us to be passive and do nothing? Travis? State of acceptance as though we are doing nothing, being very passive.
Right.
Right. I think my answer is going to sound a lot like what I've heard Eckhart Tolle say in response to questions like these. And this is that inwardly, I think it helps to look at it as inwardly and outwardly. So outwardly would be the situation at hand, which is what Candy is referencing. You know, we can all easily imagine an undesirable situation, from slightly unpleasant to horrific. So, and then from there, we want to talk about acceptance. Well, there's in our inner state of being, are we going, no, 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 okay, like we're just absolutely resisting all of this, or are we going, okay, well, this already happens to be right now. So what can I do right now? Now, maybe you need to physically defend yourself. Maybe you're in a situation like that. You can do that. Maybe you even need to attack somebody. I don't know. Could be, there's all sorts of situations life can present, and we go, well, I never knew until I was in that situation. And that's the fun of being incarnate and enjoying this wonderful, crazy life. So so just because I think when we talk about accepting a situation as it is and finding acceptance, it's pointing towards surrender on the inside, inside of ourselves. Then when we are surrendered within and we aren't at odds with what already is, we're not resisting what already is, then we can begin to then the space opens up, and now we can make sound decisions. Appropriate decisions will come to us spontaneously if we're open, if we're accepting, if we're surrendered, if we're in a state of inner peace, of inner calm, of inner acceptance around it. And so outwardly, it could look a lot of different ways. It could be, it probably would be less likely something violent, because one would be able to more readily access, if there's any way that somebody could avoid doing something that would impact a situation negatively or exacerbate it, that they would be open to those things and come to. So I think I've said it all. Just that yeah, just an inner state of acceptance, and then we can respond appropriately, spontaneously, in whatever situation life throws our way in the moment.
Thank you, Travis. To me, I always, if anybody on the Facebook group asks about acceptance, I always point everyone to chapter 10 of The Power of Now, the meaning of surrender. If we knew each and every word of that at the cellular level of our spirit, then we would know what level of acceptance is Eckhart talking about, right? Because he's actually talking about you are completely rooted in your inner beingness. You're aligned with your inner beingness, but there is no resistance. We are experiencing the unconditional love. Our mother is beating us to death, right? There is not a single ounce of resistance. If you were a child, our mother is beating us, and the kind of acceptance that he's talking about is this inner acceptance that we are being beaten to death, but there's not a single ounce of resistance. That we are accepting that this should be exactly how it is because it is. Choose it as if, accept it as if we've chosen our mother to beat us to death. Right, Travis? That's what we are
Well,
saying.
I'm not sure if I'm clear on what it is that you're saying, because are you saying that in this situation the child should just allow themselves to be beaten to death?
The inner acceptance, that they are so aligned with their inner beingness that they're still
Right.
experiencing unconditional love for their mother.
Right,
In
but the
spite
part
of,
that I'm right,
in spite of being beaten.
but
Because what's happening with the child at that time is there's a lot of resistance. They're going to hate their mother. They're going to say, how can I have such a horrible mother that beats me? Right? All that is the thinking mind, resistance of the thinking mind.
right, I just didn't know if you were suggesting that the child should just allow themselves to be beaten to death.
No, what I'm talking about is
No,
the
okay.
inner
That's
beingness,
right.
being aligned with their inner beingness. Can they be that aligned with their inner beingness that they are still experiencing unconditional love? That is what the life lesson was about, tying it all back to the beginning of what we were saying.
Right. I just wanted to be clear. I didn't want to agree to
What is the life
child should
lesson?
allow themselves to be beaten. So if that's, I didn't, and so I just wanted to clarify. But,
So
yeah.
it's not a passive state. It is actually the creative principle of, it is complete power, because you're powerless. Your powerlessness is attracting, the vibrational energy of your powerlessness is attracting the beating, right? Because we are so not aligned with our inner beingness, now that is that vibrational energy, and we are holding resentment about being beaten, so that life lesson is being presented to us, right? I'm just using a real world example so people can see. So if this human being, whether it's a child or an adult or whatever, if they can lose all their resistance, then the external their vibrational energy is co-creating the beating. So the way to stop the beating is to lose all the resistance. And that only comes with pure power of presence. That requires like incredible being rooted, deeply rooted, like Kelly says, right? Qigong, like in your inner body, and there's not an ounce of resistance energetically, vibrationally. And then that is what surrender, that is the meaning of surrender that Eckhart is talking about in chapter 10 of The Power of Now. If we learned that, we are spiritual masters, If you knew of that level of acceptance, you're spiritual masters. Thank you, Travis, for that. I'm just tying it to all the examples that everyone has been using, right? So that it becomes, why did we take birth? Why did we get this lesson? And acceptance is perfect. Surrendered action, that's what Eckhart calls it. Kelly, did you want to talk about acceptance?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, Cindy's question about acceptance, or sorry, Candy. Okay, next pair of glasses I'm getting are not going to be progressive. Just throwing that out there. Acceptance is not being passive and not doing. This is something that I've encountered in talking to Buddhists and Taoists a lot. A lot of people misunderstand the alignment with the Tao or Buddha nature as not doing anything, as just accepting and allowing things to happen without actively participating in those events, or just, again, basically trading it off as one veneer of victimhood for another. So when you are in acceptance, the feeling inside, what Eckhart is talking about and what the sages talk about in terms of acceptance of the now, is that you accept the outside world happening. You understand your place in co-creating, and you've also stepped back into observation where you are no longer participating energetically in the co-creation. You are not caught in duality. You're not caught in the extreme of emotional energy and reacting and causing more conflict. You are not allowing that to happen. You step back into observation. That is the doing nothing. That is what is actually meant by doing nothing. You are not participating in the conflict. You are no longer participating in the co-creation. You have stepped away from that, and you are no longer doing that. That is what doing nothing actually means. And that is not passive. That is actually active participation in controlling your thoughts, controlling your feelings, controlling your body, controlling your mind, controlling your words. So right thought, so right feeling, right thought, right words, right action. Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. So there's a lot of confusion about this, because a lot of people equate doing nothing, and it's never really explained, because in a lot of the old sutras and the texts and stuff like that, it's all like prose and poetry and stuff like that. And it's just like, you've got like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs going on and on trying to explain it. What it boils down to is what you are not doing is you are not emotionally participating, you are not mentally projecting, you are not physically participating in creating conflict, drama, or supporting fear or violence. That being said, as Travis said, and I really, really, really liked how you framed everything, Travis. That was beautiful, man. That was really awesome. The outside, the feeling inside when you are in acceptance, when you are in alignment, is completely different. The couple times I have actually had to use my martial arts skills on the street, I felt nothing. I did not understand what was going on until everything was happening and I had to respond to the situation. The last time was years ago, thankfully, and it was very simple and it was over real quick. You know, I didn't hurt anyone. I was, again, it's conscious and mindful practice of being present with all the skill that I have to not hurt someone. So even though violence was thrown at me, the way I responded was with very considered care for the other person so as not to hurt them. I understood what was going on. I saw what was coming at me. I consciously felt that space of choice inside of me to either respond with anger and feelings of violence. Again, violence is a feeling. It is that deep-rooted rage, space. And instead of going into that rage space, I chose to respond with conscious, mindful movement and neutralize, receive the violence and neutralize it without any emotional attachment to the situation. The energetic reality of doing that has to be understood. This is why going inside, this is why learning how to connect to the body is so important, because the feelings are complete, and acceptance inside is completely different. And you are not doing nothing. You are actively, consciously choosing to be in observation instead of reaction. You're choosing to feel your heart and feel your space and feel your choice and understand your choice. You are never doing nothing. When you are conscious and you're mindful and you're present, you understand that you are observing everything. You are witnessing everything. Even as I'm talking here, and I'm like, everything. These are not the droids you're looking for. I mean, sorry, wrong movie. It is not being passive. Do not misunderstand acceptance as passivity. Everything about being present is about being conscious and actively participating in reality from a place of observation, from a place of mindfulness, consideration, and love and acceptance of everything that is happening outside of us. When you do enough work and you understand the way that your own monkey mind and your fears operate, and you deconstruct those mental constructs and you see how you built them, how you chose to build those belief systems and those stories, when you step into observation and deconstruct them, and you realize what you've done to yourself over all the years until you realize what was going on, you then end up being able to see it in everybody else around you that is still stuck in that kind of a story. I'm just trying actually not to cry here right now. Because what happens is when you see that, there is so much love that wells up inside of you, and there's so much compassion for everyone who is unconscious and who does not see that it changes everything. And it becomes an active method of observation and being present. When you are present and aligned, there is so much love and compassion for everyone when you have deconstructed your own stories. Because you see that once you see your own stories, you see them in everybody else. You see them in the world around you. And you see how they affect everything around you. And you cannot help but be compassionate and want to share love and kindness with everyone. Okay, I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. One of the things that Eckhart says, which I like or love, a very beautiful pointer that Eckhart gives is generate enough presence power during normal situations so that when challenges come, you know what presence power feels like, right? If you don't have enough presence power in normal situations, you're becoming reactive anyway in normal situations, then you're not going to have that state of acceptance, because it requires, he also uses the analogy of a dimmer switch. He says when that life challenge comes, then you have to dial it up. Your dimmer switch should be fully on, right? You can dial it back down when it's a normal situation, you're just doing dishes or you're cleaning it doesn't require presence power to be that strong. But when somebody's yelling and screaming at you, like wild words, profanity, right? So how does the state of acceptance come? And you're loving that person, right? You're showering them with love while this person is showering us with profanity. right? You're feeling unconditional love towards that person. So Kim Ming actually has a story of Eckhart entering the garage, and supposedly he's supposed to drop the garage door, but he let the car in behind him. And so when he went parked his car, Kim said that the other driver came in and made Eckhart get out of the car and then shouted and screamed at Eckhart. And Kim said all he did was like smile and keep smiling at that person and nodding his head. And Kim asked him, "Did you hear anything that he said?" And Eckhart says, "No, I didn't hear a single word." Right? So that's how we need to be. That's the surrender, that it's okay. I can love this person that is right here in front of me, shouting and screaming at me. It's okay. Just imagine what kind of power it requires, right? Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Beautiful, very beautiful for that analogy. You want to talk about acceptance, Eileen? I know you may say
I
something
have to
about
find that unmute button. Acceptance of everything that is at this moment in my room. I think that I'm sorry, tonight is chaos here. I think that I had goosebumps when Kelly was talking, because I hear a lot of people say that about passivity, and I'd even like thought about that before, and it's come up at our group meditations a bunch of times. I know Simon's talked about it, and people thinking, you know, that if you're not responding or reacting, whatever it is, that you're not doing enough. But accepting what is just that. I explained this to somebody in my family like yesterday. You're accepting what is. It is what it is. It's nothing else. And so I think acceptance is the key. Doesn't mean it's always easy, but it's key, and it's definitely not passivity. Passivity would be more unconscious.
how about the G word?
Oh yeah. Been talking about that a lot this week. So definitely grateful for all that is, everything, every bit of it, even the 11-year-old that's driving me bonkers right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Gratitude for every lesson that is being presented, every challenge that is being presented, right? Because it's evolving us towards that unconditional love. So
Yes, and even the first question that I didn't get a chance to answer because he was throwing so many questions at me at the same time, I couldn't. But even that one, I was thinking back to that. Oh, and it just left my head again. I had it, and then it's going. When Tina mentioned about how is it possible that like a soul would choose parents when the parents are unconscious or, you know, abusive or whatever, like, but 'cause he was over there like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've thought about that before. Like, well, why would I do that? That's a good question. But it's all like part of that process of growth, of getting to that unconditional love. So I do think that, you know, souls do make those choices. They make the choices that they need to get there. But thank you for your patience tonight. He's a handful today.
you handle it well, Eileen. We couldn't experience it on our side, so thank you.
Watch the video back and you're going to be like, what is going on over there? But thank you.
Thank you. April, did you want to talk about acceptance? Candy's question, and let me check time. Okay.
Yeah, I can do real quick because we're over out of time, whatever. I I mean, I agree with everything that's said. I don't know that I can say better. I believe that acceptance creates peace. And I say that many, many times a day. It's not about right or wrong, whether you like it or not. It is literally acceptance creates peace. But I would like to exchange that word passive for either boundaries or self-care, because that's what I think the question is hinting at. Is it okay to let somebody abuse me and just accept? Do I just accept somebody's behavior and therefore I'm passive? No, there's a difference between being passive, self-care, and boundaries. And actually, to kind of hit with like Travis and Kelly were saying, is that I have found in my life, the quicker I go to acceptance and the faster, the more I step back and I observe. How do I put this? I observe through God's eyes. I don't know how to explain. I observe what the person is doing, what my child is doing through the eyes of God. And I may not like what they're doing or what they're going to do, but then I step back and I say, I love you enough to let you make that mistake, because you obviously need to learn something from that, right? You as a soul needs to learn something from that. And if I step in and I stop you, how are you going to learn it? Or it's going to take you 5 more years to learn it. I'm going to step back and love you. I'm going to let you learn it. Of course, I'm not talking about people being killed here. I mean, we're not, you know. So that really is what I do with like my children. If they're making decisions and they've made a couple decisions that I just, okay. And instead of getting involved and getting, you know, all upset and bringing all the emotions in, I just step back and I say, I think this is what God does. I think he looks at us and goes, okay, if you say so. Well, can you let me know when you're done? Because I'll be right here when you're done, right? I think God does the same thing. So acceptance is peace.
Thank you, April. And if you need to leave, since you need to do the homework portion,
Yes.
you're more than welcome to leave. I'm going to take that last question that Sandhya put in the chat and go through with Kelly and Travis and Ali. Is that okay? Or you
Sure.
want to stay? You want to stay and answer that question?
What question is it?
Sandhya says, I do see signs of constant restlessness in my adult daughter. She's grounded and very hardworking, but constantly driven to despair because ever demanding egoic ideas. How to encourage her to embrace the miracles of ET's teachings?
You want to know, the first key is number one is when you've had enough suffering, and Eckhart teaches that a lot. When you've had enough suffering, when you've had enough sadness, when you've had enough depression, enough stress, when you have a heart attack, when you have enough and you say, there's something greater in this world, and the constant, I cannot tell you how much I deal with this in a day, the constant comparing of myself to you, the constant value comparing that people do, of people tell me so much, well, if I don't do this, then they're going to talk about me. And me already going through this and getting myself to the point where I don't care what other people say. And the key in that is you have to know who you are. Once you know who you are, as a person and as a soul, as part of God, you don't care what people think, and you know who you are. but they're so worried about that. The other key thing with Eckhart with me was the pain body. His talks of the pain body just like woke me right up. And noticing that ego. The ego goes with hardworking, constantly driven, because the ego has to be fulfilled. It's not fulfilled. So I don't know that she can do for her daughter, but she can just keep teaching and spreading those words and hope that the daughter catches on. And also, emanating that presence, emanating that relax, what does it matter? You're good enough. So those are things that I would say.
I always say, again, I'll go back to this "You Are the Sky" talk. If we keep saying, my daughter is restless and in despair, my daughter is restless and in despair, the other rises to meet the flaw, because we have them locked in that judgment. We are in that prison of our mind, and our judgment will keep them locked. So, like you were saying, right, April, if I see from the eyes of source, I see a daughter with infinite potential, because every human has infinite potential. So I need to rest back in that alignment with inner beingness and say, my daughter has infinite potential. She's going to figure it out. She doesn't need Eckhart's teachings, right? She's going to learn her life lessons. Her spiritual growth is going to happen the way it needs to happen. And she's going to learn her life lessons, right? That's what's going to happen.
And I can't, if I stop the life lessons, then she won't learn. That's the key. That's what I think God's source does with us, is people say, well, why did he let me be abused? And why did he blow up my car? And well, but if I save you from everything, what am I really doing you any good? Am I really teaching? Am I really loving you?
There's no expansion.
Right. So
You are-
learning to step back with all these people that are close to me, all these people I love, even clients I work with, I step back and I accept where they're at on that path. And I say, okay, well, you're here. We would all like to be down there, but you know what? And that's okay that you're here. And I don't intervene, because then I'm intervening with their growth. In true love, you don't do that. That doesn't mean I don't ever give them $5 or give them dinner, or, but you don't intervene with the true soul growth.
Thank you, April. Like we said, true detachment is the non-identification with thought formations. Travis, did you want to talk about, thank you, April. And if you have to leave, it's okay. Or you can stay. Thank you. Travis,
Mhm.
you want to talk to
Um,
Sandhya's question?
Sure. So, I mean, my feeling is always this, is that the more that we can emanate these miracles that we embrace, right? The more that we can be it and live it. I mean, she's saying it right there. These are miracles that we're embracing, and things of endless value. And so the more that we can just be it, the I don't want to go into a corny, spontaneous rhyme, but I feel like the more that we can, emulate it, the more others are going to be able to emanate it. It's reciprocal and responsive. So we have to take the lead. And part of what that means too, and I know this is something we've been touching on some of these questions, is allowing others to be, and allowing others to be as they are, where they are, while they are there. And one thing that makes it easier for me to do that is when I look at life, whatever you want to call it, source or life or God or the universe or whatever name you like, the divine is so gracious with me. It allots me that time. It doesn't need for me to change so soon. It's of absolutely zero detriment to the divine, however sluggish and slow my evolution may be. Hallelujah. So I want to find myself in that same place where I can offer the same grace that has been bestowed upon me, where I can say, take your time. There's no race to eternity. There's no race to the beyond. It's no big hurry. There's and so and I think that the more that we, anyone can find ourselves in that space where the way that we see things in this moment, the way that we're feeling about everything in this moment is that not only is it not so bad, not only is it's like I can tolerate it, or it's okay, or it's not a problem. That's all better than things being a problem. But to find ourselves in a place where it's a delight and we're so enraptured by all of it, life and the situations that emerge out of life and fall back into life, that we're so engrossed and in love with and enraptured by all of it that we find ourselves in that place where we feel as though it couldn't be improved upon. That to me feels like my greatest gift to life, the greatest homage I could give for all that is constantly being bestowed upon me endlessly. And so the more I can be in that place, and that's what I'm trying to do, is just be in that place right now in this group, so as to display it, because I think that's how Sandhya can best help not only her daughter, but all people in the most direct and efficient and kind of just expedited way. So that's thanks for the question, Sandhya. That was fun to answer.
It's a beautiful question. I'm sure every parent struggles with it during this age, right? If they have millennials. So yet I wouldn't I mean there's nothing more to add. That would be it, is if she would be a demonstration of holding presence power, then she could pass that on to her daughter, right? And maybe that'll make a shift. That'll pull some of the unconsciousness away. I do talk about nutrition a lot, right? We always have questions. What I would do if the despair is depression, then I would do the leafy greens, add nutrition supplements like barley grass juice water is good. Leafy greens are good. So make smoothies for her so we need to be energized by the sun. And one way to get energized by the sun is to put in sun in our body, and leafy greens, fruits are a great way. So thank you, Travis, for that. Be a demonstration of presence power, right? Eileen, did you want to, I let Kelly wrap it up. So you want to speak to Sandhya's question since you have two little ones?
Yeah. I think we've talked about this a couple times before, but I just feel like there's no like needing to tell or encourage, or it's just you focusing on you and being the role model. Like that's how, like I am accepting, I am grateful, I am non-reactive, you know, like I just model, and especially in the hardest of times, showing that flexibility and that grace and that ability to not go where maybe our patterns would bring us to. Because I can't make them or control them, only they can do that. And so I think letting that go, you know, letting that go of feeling like you need to teach her or anything like that. I find that they learn more from me when I'm not actively teaching them anything.
Perfect. Thank you. And to me, the fact that a person is efforting, right, using the word efforting and hardworking, one of the, like very gently drop these sentences, Sandhya, that actually when we are doing law of attraction, when law of attraction is in the works, right, and it's a universal law, um, law of attraction says there's no effort, right? What is it called? The law of least effort. Um, I achieve maximal benefit with minimal effort, right? So as is, our presence power attracts. So if they're efforting, then they're going against that law and it'll get destroyed. The efforting and hard work, and maybe that's why the despair is something efforting is going on. They're not aligned with their inner being, and they're just efforting and not aligned with this law of least effort, which is my action creates maximal benefit with minimal effort. So it always has to be minimal effort. Just flow. Life is about flowing. So that very little gentle drop it when she's in a good mood, when she's in the receptive state of mind, just drop it. No lecture, no nothing. Just drop that. Life is about just doing things with. It needs to flow. It needs to be of least effort. Efforting and hard work is ego mind, right? Pushing against. And as Eckhart says, impermanence of form, it'll get destroyed. Kelly, let's wrap it up. I know you'll have wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. Very well said, you guys. Though I would generally take a different approach. I absolutely agree with everything that's been said about being an example, because you have to lead by example. What I've done with the people in my life that have that I'm close to, and I have changed dynamics between myself and my partners, family members, just by being an example and standing my ground and not participating in conflict, not participating in the energy of the despair, of the drama. However, one of the main things that I do is I question the logic of the expression of the despair. So when someone is like a gerbil in a little gerbil wheel going round and round and round with the same questions, the same conversation, that is always a clear indication that they are in their ego, that their shadow is in control, and that the reptilian survival emotional defense mechanisms are at the forefront and they're stuck. So my tactic is to basically ask, what are you doing with your mind? What are you doing with your thoughts? What are you letting yourself feel, and what are you letting yourself believe about the situation? And why? That was always it's been my lifelong favorite question. My mom and dad have stories about me asking why when I was a kid. So this is that's who I am. And that's the approach that I generally take, is being that example and giving, if, you know, Sandia, you have an understanding of how not to, if you have an example, a personal example of a space where you have seen yourself slip into despair and how you pulled yourself out of it and what you observed, share that with your daughter. Share that with the person that you love who is in that space, who is stuck in that space. That is one of the things that I found is very effective, is having a personal context. If I have an experience myself of stepping out of despair, and I've dealt with, you know, depression and anxiety when I was younger, despair. I mean, when I got divorced, it's like my entire world just broke apart, and I had to completely reinvent my life for the most part. The reality for me was that my shadow and my ego, my monkey mind, wanted me to just stay in despair, to stay trapped in comparing myself to the outside world. And I realized that one of the things that I'd done is that I had based my entire identity on this attachment to someone else. And this is what egoic or attachments do to us. Our monkey mind wants us to be trapped looking outside of ourselves and not going inside. And if you have an example, if you have a personal context for realizing this, for stopping yourself from being attached to something external, share that with your daughter. I've found, you know, the 4 young people, my partner's kids, have gotten the most benefit from me sharing personal examples, personal context, without teaching or lecturing, but just sharing, well, you know, I don't understand exactly what you're going through, but my personal experience was this. Maybe that makes sense. And just leave it at that. Exactly what Poonam said, is like, where you don't push, you don't force the issue, you just are that example, and you offer that support and that love by sharing and by opening up two-way communication and not judging, because, you know, depending on the age of your daughter, I mean, in our 20s, we are generally just sort of like really driven to, you know, get things for ourselves and build up our identity, because we didn't feel like we had any control when we were in a teenager. So darn it, we're going to prove to the world that we have control now and do it and make it happen that way. And then, you know, for myself, I found in my 30s, it's like, wow, that was, you know, that was interesting, but not actually a lot of fun. So what do I actually enjoy doing and why? And, well, you know, what is left when all the stuff that I invested ego attachment into falls away? You know, the small things become really big things. Just being able to enjoy, you know, sitting down and having a cup of tea or coffee, or, you know, a nice biscuit or something like that. You know, I find personal context goes a long way. Sharing the emotions as well, the emotional content that you also had to face when you changed the way you thought about something. That I found it is also a really big key element. So the desire and despair swing of the pendulum is really important to observe. And whenever someone comes to me with a question like that, I always go, well, what do you do with your mind? What are you doing with your mind? Do you understand what you are letting your mind do to you? Are you, you know, choosing to have control and active participation over what you feel and why? Or are you just letting yourself, you know, get run over?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that advice, Kelly. I think Eckhart would say, don't be attached to the parenting role. Don't be so identified with your role as a mother that you're going to say, I'm your mother, listen to me, and this is how it should be, right? The conditioned pattern, don't repeat the conditioned pattern yourself, would be like the advice should be very gentle, kind of like somewhere where they're receptive and you told them the context of how we lived when we were 20 or what we went through, right? The emotional and the experience. So beautiful. And I think we should wrap up. I do know I jumped around in the questioning. I am going to save the chat and go back to all the ones that we missed today, and we'll visit them next week, because there were so many good questions that I did like, and Zachary being 11, we had to honor the 11-year-old. So we never get questions from 11-year-olds. So yes, that was like an honor and a privilege. So y'all, I know Travis has not been feeling well. He's here. So I am humbled by the selfless giving of this whole panel, as well as everyone out there that has supported us with creative questions. Without the question, there is no answer. That's the energy field that is created where the teaching arises, right? So many blessings. Have a fantastic week, and we'll meet on Friday. Have a good night, Darlene, Travis,
you.
Kelly. Thank you so much. Much love.